Dogman is an incredible book series, and one of its best characters is undoubtedly Little Petey, who's getting a fantastic adaptation in the Canine Cop's upcoming movie.
Dogman!
But do you know the amazing journey of this little cat, who had every reason to become a villain, but chose to walk the path of good instead? Lil Petey made his first appearance in the third Dogman book, A Tale of Two Kitties, back in 2017, and it forever changed the saga. He quickly became one of the franchise's most important characters. No wonder he's being introduced in the very first Dogman movie. In this story, faithfully recreated in the movie, Petey the cat, desperate for help to commit his crimes and outsmart Dogman, buys a cloning machine. Using one of his whiskers, he creates a second version of himself. That's why Petey has one less whisker on one side of his face. However, to Petey's surprise, the clone turns out to be a younger, more innocent version of himself, Lil Petey. The problem? Lil Petey thinks and acts like a typical child and has no desire to be evil like his original counterpart. Because of this, Petey abandons him on the street, just like many cruel people do to kittens in real life. Thankfully, Lil Petey is found by none other than Dogman. That's how the little cat and the canine cop began living together. It didn't take long for Petey to regret abandoning him. After all, in a way, it's like their father and son. To make amends, Petey builds a robot named ADHD as a gift, hoping to corrupt Lil Petey with power. But his plan backfires in spectacular fashion. Lil Petey uses ADHD's abilities to help Dogman fight Flippy, a cyborg fish villain with psychic powers. After this, Petey is arrested and reluctantly agrees to his son's wish to become a better person. Before the movie was even released, DreamWorks teased the scene where Lil Petey is created in the cloning machine, just like in the books. The movie also features the moment Dogman finds Lil Petey in a cardboard box, as well as scenes of them living together at the cop's house. On top of that, Petey builds ADHD in the movie, making the film incredibly faithful to Lil Petey's origin story. All of this happens in the first book featuring Lil Petey, but there's so much more to tell about this incredible little cat. Ready? Then hop on board. It's time for another episode of Cinewave. Later in 2017, the next book in the series was released, featuring another amazing adventure with Dogman and Lil Petey. In this story, the half-human, half-dog cop goes to work while Lil Petey stays home with a surprise babysitter, not suspicious at all. In fact, the babysitter is Petey himself in disguise. Petey uses this disguise to keep an eye on his son and tries to convince him to become a villain. Although Petey has accepted that his son wants to be good, he's the kind of dad who just can't resist giving a little push to make him change his mind. For instance, when looking at ADHD, Petey notices that Lil Petey removed the robot's missile launcher because he believes friends don't need to fire missiles at people. Lil Petey also replaced the regular battery with a solar-powered one to protect the environment. Seriously, this cat is amazing. Petey tries to argue that ADHD isn't anyone's friend, claiming he only does what Lil Petey commands because he's programmed to do so. Later, Petey takes Lil Petey outside and starts teaching him how to do bad things. Eventually, they end up crashing a movie studio filming a Dogman movie because Petey wants to attack the actress playing reporter Sarah Hadoff. But once again, Lil Petey refuses to follow in his father's footsteps. Instead, he dons a costume and assumes his superhero identity for the first time, Cat Kid. Teaming up with Dogman, who for the first time transforms into the Bark Knight, Lil Petey defeats his father and sends him back to jail. Lil Petey's superhero identity as Cat Kid continues to appear in future stories. In fact, he's featured in the Dogman game released in December 2024 alongside the Bark Knight. Will these two heroes make it into the movie, or will they save that for a potential Dogman 2? We'll have to wait for the movie to find out, but one thing's for sure, you're counting down the seconds. If you're excited to see Lil Petey become a superhero in the movie, comment below with #CatKid. Over the course of the books, Lil Petey's relationship with his father evolved to the point where they stopped being enemies and truly became a family. The little cat even visits his dad in the 2018 book Brawl of the Wild. Then, in For Whom the Ball Rolls, 2019, Petey is pardoned for his crimes and released from prison. From that point on, Lil Petey and his father start living together. However, Lil Petey still visits Dogman's house on the weekends. If you're wondering how Dogman could let his best friend go live with a former villain, the answer is simple. Petey really did stop committing crimes. He wanted to be a better person for his son. After all, Dogman's ex-enemy had only been a villain for most of his life because of his troubled childhood and the fact that he had always been a very lonely cat. And yes, the redemption of the cat, once considered the world's most evil villain, will almost certainly be adapted into the movie. At least, that's what several leaks and new trailer scenes we've covered in previous videos suggest. Just be prepared, you might shed a tear or two in the theater. Shortly after Lil Petey starts living with his dad and for whom the ball rolls, he gets a terrible idea, reaching out to his grandfather, Crud, who's even more evil than Petey ever was. In fact, Crud was a terrible father to Petey and is responsible for most of his trauma. Unfortunately, things don't go well. Lil Petey hopes to resolve the family conflict, but Crud acts like a complete jerk. After Lil Petey and Petey leave his house, Crud even has the audacity to rob them, stealing all their belongings to sell for cash. Thankfully, Crud ends up being arrested after this. Still, Lil Petey doesn't give up on his grandfather. In the 2019 book Fetch 22, the little cat convinces Petey to visit Crud in cat jail, believing everyone has the potential to change. But Crud uses sleeping gas to knock Petey out and switches places with him. After that, Crud takes things even further. He kidnaps Lil Petey, only to abandon him in a dumpster shortly after. This shows that sadly not everyone can be saved, but even though Lil Petey was wrong about his grandfather, in the 2020 book Grime and Punishment, he convinces his dad to confront Crud. Thanks to his son's encouragement, Petey finally defeats the man who caused him so much pain. Now, shifting gears, why not subscribe to our channel? That way, you'll get tons of amazing daily videos about your favorite cartoons. If you think Lil Petey's life is all about playing around and saving the world alongside Dogman and ADHD, you're almost right, but not entirely. During the series, Lil Petey develops a hobby so important that it becomes the main focus of his very own spin-off series. That's right, Lil Petey is the star of a Dogman spin-off. In this series, he gathers a bunch of other characters his age to start a comic-making club. Unexpected, huh? The first book in the series was released in 2020, kicking off a super fun saga. The main characters in this club include Molly, a tadpole, and Flippy. Yes, the same cyborg fish with psychic powers who's apparently the villain in DreamWorks' upcoming movie. But in the books, Flippy redeems himself and becomes one of the good guys. Alongside them, Lil Petey also teaches 22 superpowered tadpoles who were originally villains in Fetch 22. And yes, before you ask, the 22 in the title refers to the number of tadpoles. The fact that Lil Petey got his own spin-off show shows how much Dogman's creator, Dav Pilkey, loves this character and how much fans adore him too. The new series of books has been incredibly well received. Beyond that, it highlights how much Lil Petey has grown as a character. At first, he was just a defenseless kitten looking for a home. While he's still an adorable kitten, he's no longer defenseless and has developed remarkable leadership skills. Could Lil Petey grow up to become a famous cartoonist like the creator of the saga? Dav Pilkey, the creator of Dogman, is known for using his own life as inspiration for his characters and the situations in his stories. The best examples of this are George and Harold, the fictional creators of the Dogman and Captain Underpants comics, who are inspired by Pilkey himself. The same goes for Lil Petey. Or does it? You might be wondering, so is Lil Petey also based on Pilkey? The answer is no. Surprisingly, the main inspiration for Lil Petey was Pilkey's mother, while Petey was inspired by Pilkey himself. It's pretty wild, isn't it? Especially since the author created a character based on himself to be the father of a character based on his own mother. But it all makes sense when you think about the relationship between the two characters. As a child, Pilkey struggled with ADHD and dyslexia, which made school very challenging. However, his mother helped him develop a love for reading and encouraged him to stick with his studies, which ultimately changed his life. This dynamic mirrors the relationship between the two felines in Dogman. Petey starts as a villain, but redeems himself and begins living a righteous life, all because his son was there to support him. This video is wrapping up, but we've left 2 amazing videos on your screen. Click on the one that looks the most fun so the entertainment never stops. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!